The New Norm is brought to you by Winning at Home. I'm Steve Norman. Welcome to The New Norm. Not long ago, I got asked to speak at a men's night for a local church, and the theme that they have for the year is standing firm. And while I wanted to initially go to the book of Judges or First Kings, or one of those history books that had like these really epic tales of these warriors who stood their ground in the midst of like great persecution. That's a good men's night theme. But the more and more I thought about it, and the more I got some feedback from the event coordinator, Ben, I said, what does it look like for Jesus to stand firm? And there were a couple different episodes that we find in Jesus' life where he displays spiritual grit and resilience and tenacity like nobody else who's recorded in the scripture. So I want to pick two scenes from Jesus' life where he stands firm and want to invite you to consider what standing firm in those circumstances might look like for you. The first episode that we have is where Jesus is standing firm in the wilderness. And in this moment, he stands firm on the truth of God. This is a passage that we've touched on before, but I want to take a different angle on it today. Jesus is standing firm in resistance to the lies and the temptation of his spiritual enemy. We read this in Matthew chapter 4. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted or tested by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. And the tempter came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread." And Jesus answered, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." He's quoting Deuteronomy chapter 8. Then the devil took him to the holy city and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. "If you are the Son of God," he said, "throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone." And the enemy is quoting Psalm 91. Jesus answered him, "It is also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." Jesus is quoting Deuteronomy chapter 6. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. "All this I will give you," he said, "if you will bow down and worship me." And Jesus said to him, "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." Jesus is quoting Deuteronomy chapter 6 again. Then the devil left him, and angels came and attended him. Satan tempts Jesus the same way he tempts us, to meet legitimate needs through illegitimate means. That's the very essence of sin, rebellion, and disobedience, to have our legitimate needs met through illegitimate means. So Jesus has this desire for security. He's hungry. And Satan says, well, do a trick. Jesus has this need for status or for connection. And the enemy says, do a stunt. And Jesus has this longing for significance, for his calling, for his vocation. And the enemy says, just do a bow, do an act of worship to me. And I believe that the enemy's best trick is to sow doubt. How does he do it? By asking a very simple question. If you are the Son of God, will you do this? And so my question for us is, how do you stand firm in the face of temptation? I think it's by declaring our identity as beloved sons and daughters of God. We need to proclaim to ourselves and to anybody who's listening that every single need of ours that matters can and will be met in and through Christ alone. Well, so how does Jesus know that he's a son? Well, at his baptism, the scene that immediately precedes his testing in the wilderness, we have this beautiful scene where heaven opens and the Spirit descends in the form of a dove and rests on Jesus' head. And people hear this voice from heaven that says, "This is my Son whom I love. In him I am well pleased." Sometimes I forget that that's not the only time in the Gospels where that scene unfolds. The scriptures tell us that later at the Mount of Transfiguration, where Jesus has a smaller group of people gathered, just 3 of his core disciples, they hear a voice from heaven say it again. "This is my Son whom I love. I'm pleased with him." And we see this pattern that every time Jesus gets ready to enter a storm, he gets a reminder of his sonship. Not long after that scene on the mountain, Jesus is struggling again. He's facing betrayal and his death. And if our first scene is one of Jesus in the wilderness, the second one that we have is Jesus in the garden. And if in the first scene, Jesus stands firm in the face of temptation, in the second scene, Jesus stands firm in the face of doubt. He stands in the posture of surrender. Matthew 26, we read this. Then he said to them, meaning his disciples, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked Peter. "Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." He went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away, unless I drink it, may your will be done." And when he came back, he found them sleeping, because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed the third time, saying the same thing. "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." Then he returned to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come, and the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners." People say that word Gethsemane can literally mean olive press. And when I've had opportunity to visit the Holy Land on a handful of occasions, one of my favorite places to visit is at a place called Nazareth Village, where they kind of recreate a first century setting. And in it, they have recreated an ancient olive press. And the workers show us how crushed olives would go into a basket that would get placed over a stone with a hole at the bottom to help collect the oil. And workers would use a pulley system to lift a 1,000-pound stone, which would create pressure on top of that mesh basket to squeeze oil out of the crushed olives. And that first press was virgin olive oil. It was the first fruits. It was dedicated to God for sacred purposes, like lighting the menorah in the temple. The second press, after another 1,000-pound weight was added to the system, would be for food or for perfume or cosmetics. And when the workers would add a third 1,000-pound stone, this would be the final press. And it was used for fuel for olive lamps or to make soap. But under so much pressure, there's nothing left. The olives are squeezed completely dry of any remaining oil. And in this scene, I'm so grateful for Jesus' honesty. He says, "Father, I don't want to do this. If it's possible, take this cup, but not as I will, but as you will." And the second press, he goes, "Father, this seems truly difficult, but I'll still trust you. If it's not possible for it to be taken away unless I drink it, if the only way to the other side of this cup is for me to consume it, may your will be done." And the third prayer, almost that third pressing, "Father, I don't know why you're silent, but I want what you want. If it's not possible to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." Surrender isn't just a moment, it's a habit. To surrender once is noble, but to surrender regularly is challenging. And if your faith story is at all like mine, there are plenty of these like mountaintop moments, these kind of high school and college retreats where you get all amped up and you get emotional and you promise God you're everything. And those are good and they're right and they're pure. But sometimes it's a lot more exciting to surrender to Jesus in a moment of drama than it is to surrender in the midst of the mundane. I remember having a conversation with my mother once when I was probably in middle school or high school. And I said, "Mom, if I had to give up my life for the gospel, I think I could." And she told me this. She goes, "Steve, surrender isn't like writing a big check. It's like writing a check every single day. Surrender isn't like a grand gesture. It's a daily discipline. In fact, Jesus himself said, 'Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me.'" I'm reminded of a 19th century missionary, a guy by the name of David Livingstone, who prayed this prayer. "God, send me anywhere, only go with me. Lay any burden on me, only sustain me. And sever any tie but the tie that binds me to your heart and your service." Surrender is never easy, but there's always joy and fruit on the other side of it. So if you're in the wilderness or if you're in the garden, please know that you're not alone. Stand firm. And one day, you'll be glad you did. The New Norm is produced and distributed by Winning at Home. Winning at Home is a faith-based nonprofit committed to making individuals, couples, families, and businesses stronger through counseling and coaching. For more information, visit winningathome.com. I'm your host, Steve Norman. Thanks for listening.